Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Positive EV podcast. My name is Fracus III, and joining me today is one of our gents of the CSGO Market Forum, Nombers. How you doing today, man? Oh, fantastic. So this is going to be part one of our recording. So for this section, we're going to be talking with you about kind of just about yourself. So we're going to be talking about you've told me you're self-employed, have a couple of businesses, have some experience along that side, and just around that because it's not something that everybody can do. It's not something that everyone's willing to do. So just wanted to discuss with you about that. So how long have you been self-employed for with your own businesses? Yep. Okay. What sort of businesses did you sort of dabble in? Like high school, is that like a lawn mowing business, or were you still online then? Yep. Yep. Oh, but at least you tried. You got in there. You gave it a go, and I mean, it's probably taught you a lot regarding running your businesses now.
In the beginning, it's not for everyone, and you need to be you need to be able to live that lifestyle that it requires. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just what businesses do you have now? So now you've had that experience. What sort of businesses have you built up? What ones have been successful?
I've built up. I started the first business that I started in the second round was a user testing business. So what we provide is like we go in and then we figure out. We take a big company's website, uh, figure out like what in order to go ahead and buy something on this website, for instance, what is the product experience or what is the user experience actually like. And so in that journey, we go ahead and map out what can you improve and how can you basically sell more or improve your user retention is also something that we've focused on. So that's something like in user testing in general is what that business deals with. And then yeah, that's the primary one that I have right now. And then also I have a holding company and I'm invested in a bit of a sort of other stuff and also a bit of Counter Strike in general, but that's more in my private economy.
Okay, so that's actually quite cool. That's also quite involved. That must have taken a lot of time and setup to be able to get involved with.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely.
how many years have you been part of this, or I guess running this company for?
Uh, we started in 2017, so that's four
That
years.
wow, and that's been enough for you to maintain your own independence and
Uh,
not have
yeah,
to go and work for someone else.
Yeah, so that company is sort of like it's I'm focusing a lot of some other projects right now, but in the beginning we started it out, and for the first couple of years there was not really, you can't take any money out because there's not you
Yeah.
don't make a lot, and you need to go ahead and reinvest that to grow the business.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a common theme I've heard is you have to reinvest it in the business. You can't take money out for 2, 3 years for yourself
yeah,
because you just don't have enough. There's not enough
yeah.
there.
Exactly, and that's also why it's also always a great idea. So if anyone is like thinking, "Or should I start a business?" Yes, the older you get, the more difficult, generally speaking, it's going to become. Because when you become older, you get more, you have more responsibility. You have people that you need to provide for, and so in general, like the less you have of that, the easier it is to go ahead and say, okay, I'm just going to do something on the side, and then I'm going to focus on the business.
Yeah.
So what I did specifically was I started another business that was more liquid, or that was only really meant to be paying me and then reinvesting a less portion of it. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's really cool. So with that, so you say you have to start. You're saying you have to start early and just
Mm.
start diving into it. That's
Mm.
a very different mindset than what most people are taught of at school or typically read. Because a lot of young people won't start a business; they'll go and get a job at McDonald's or they'll go get a job at the local grocery store to start off their
Mm.
careers. What sort of mindset did you have to go into this going, I'm going to start my own business. I want to make my own money and not have it be from working for someone else.
I think that I just have a passion. I've always had a passion for building stuff. So I think that I also have a passion for economy and money and business in general.
Yep.
So for me, it was more of a question of like it was not really sort of like something that I woke up one day and say I want to have a business. It was a sort of a natural path for me,
Mm-hmm.
something that kept popping up as an option, and something that I just like, okay, fine, if it fails, it fails, but whatever.
Yeah. And for you as a young person, what I say that like I'm old. When you were young, when you were younger, what was your what would have been the risk of fail? Well, I guess you did fail these businesses. What was the risk in that? What were the consequences?
Um, the the consequences were not. I mean, for instance, to start up my first business, I took in Denmark we have something called an SU loan. It's a student loan. It has a really great interest rate on it, and it's a really safe loan. So I took that out, and it was for like $2,000 or something, and I invested that in products for the business. Ultimately, I did lose that money,
Yep.
but that was the consequence of that action. That was the consequence of that.
Yep. So took out the initial loan, lost it, and yeah, but that was the end of it. There was no lasting like legal ramifications. There was no lasting career damaging issues.
No, no, and I think oftentimes, and I think that's a really oftentimes a very unfortunate thing about running a business and the way people view having a business as something that is very, um, you know, like l- legally, like it can ruin your life, kind of. It can ruin your life, but only if you make oftentimes dumb decisions. I mean, it's not like it's like for for me, it's like going out. You don't, oftentimes there's not going to be that many legal problems. So it's going to be like you going out and buying a stock on margin or something. Using
Yeah.
money that you don't really have and using a lot more than you would realistically be able to pay back.
Yep. Um, something that listeners may not know about myself is that I had a business that failed a number of years ago. So I was out of
Okay, what
school.
was
I wasn't doing much out of school. I had a van, and literally I was just like, I'm just gonna start gardening and landscaping. So I did that for
Nice.
probably 6 months to 6 8 months, where I went around doing regular um, lawn mowing, weeding, trimming, but also doing your larger mulching, reticulation, and design projects for a couple of gardens. That was really, 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 really fun. A lot of
Mm.
hard labor. Ended up falling out with the other person that I was doing it with, and
Okay.
so the business in itself failed at that point. There was just
Mm.
fights and disagreements, and that was just something that we just couldn't work past. So
So what was the consequence for you in that
con-
situation?
consequence for me was I had to go and find another job. Like,
Mm.
though my initial investment was paying for my own individual lawnmower, a weed trimmer, a blower vac, some bags, some tip passes to be able to go to the waste management facilities, and just all stuff that was also already claimable on tax because I had it under an official business name. I was able to claim any losses that I had
Yeah.
as a tax deduction anyway. So
Yeah.
my it was very minimal. It There was so little to be lost at that point. There was
Yeah.
the upside was great. Had some fantastic business and partnership opportunities in that I learnt from. Absolutely amazing. But
So
yeah, the downside was very
like
minimal.
so I mean, but at least for me, what did you learn from that experience? I mean, what did you take away that was positive? Because uh, for me, running a business and owning a company. It's very much so a I, that the $2,000 that I invested into the business in the beginning, I kind of see it now as like a expensive like course that you will go on, or an inexpensive
Yeah,
course that you will go on, right?
yeah, that would be similar takeaway from me. Was that I spent all this money, I made a bit of money, I lost a bit of money. I've learnt so much about business along the way. I've also learnt that what I can do and about the mindset to be able to run your own business is very different than just rocking up to a job. It
Mm.
and being an employee, being able to being able to just go to a shift that's already organized for you, that's already you have set hours, is really, really easy compared to
Mm.
having to find your own business clients and work for every penny, and you have to really sweat for it.
Yeah, definitely, and it's also a very like it's something that you have to have a passion for, right? Because if you go into starting a business with the dreams of like, okay, I'm gonna make, $200,000 this year or something, like, yeah, oh, yeah, good luck. I mean, some
Yeah,
people do
good.
get lucky, but like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's gonna take years, and you're not gonna make a lot of money in those years, and you're probably gonna fail along the way, and then if you keep at it, uh, you know, it's like I always compare it to fishing.
yeah,
So running a business is a lot like fishing, I think, at least with when it comes to success. Because if you just keep at it, if you are out on the lake every day, eventually you're going to catch a fish.
yeah.
Um, you know,
Some people just catch that fish earlier than others.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
it's just about keep trying and also understanding the lake often, right? And
yeah.
figuring out how does it work.
What bait do the fish like? What do your
Yeah,
consumers want? What do you need
exactly,
to what what do you need to provide um,
exactly.
as a
And I
business
think
owner?
that's also really a great thing about this community in general, like with the Cisco Market Forum, and something that I continuously like learn a lot from like every day is like how how money works,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's also something that I don't we don't teach it a lot in school,
Yeah.
and I don't really know if you can. Uh, You probably could in some way, but like how money works, how do you make money, um, all of those sort of nuances, like you get a feel for it, right?
Yeah, yeah, that does take. It takes a lot of brain power to do that. It takes a lot of education time, but there's probably also financial incentives to not educate people on how to make a lot of money in a way
Mm.
that not just self-employed business, but through other wealth appreciation methods where it won't make as much money for the government. So
Yeah,
I'm not talking like uh, politically here, but people, if you earn a salary, you're paying the highest level of taxes, which then go to the government. The government also run your education system. They don't want people to go into an education system and figure out how to not pay taxes and
yeah,
pay
yeah,
and pay the government, pay for everyone's like public health initiatives and everything. They don't want people to try and get out of that. They want people to get into that and be able to continue paying for it.
right. I mean, a good economy also often wants you don't want everyone to be self-employed.
No.
You want a subset to be.
Yeah.
It should not be too small because then you know you don't really move forward. You're not innovative. But it also shouldn't be too big necessarily. So you know, because like if too many people are self-employed, then you see it in different like sort of branches or whatever you call it with like
Yeah.
different kind of businesses, right? Because like you mentioned the lawn mowing
Yep.
business. When I was in high school, what was really big was like people making their own I'll make your website kind of business.
Yep.
So like that sort of business was really popular, and that market is just so saturated. Like that, there's nothing to get there. Okay, you can maybe make
Yeah.
a website,
The
and then like
margins start undercutting each other to get you
yeah,
customers when you're providing the same service.
yeah,
But then, as well, something I've seen is that when you have enough small businesses doing something, say, like making resin casts of figures that people buy,
mm,
you'll eventually attract enough market attention that a larger company will then just come and swoop in, undercut all of you with a really cheap worldwide production and destroy
mm,
what you've made.
yeah, yeah.
Which,
You see that a
so,
lot.
which is where that balance comes in. You're going to have large corporations, you're going to have small businesses, you're going to have employees that work for the large corporations and small businesses. There's going to be a balance, and it will always shift slowly.
Yeah, definitely. And you also you need to have at least that's my own personal view on it, but you need to have something oftentimes that limits the corporation's ability to go into a market and just swoop up the little guy and or just undercut and remove them and then take the entire
Yeah,
thing for themselves.
that's that's something that is really important with small businesses. They have a lot of mobility that large corporations don't. For to be
Yeah.
able to make a business decision, create a new product to then sell, can take um, can take large businesses like, for example, Walmart or Amazon or Johnson and Johnson. It can take them months to years to create to 2 years to create a product and have it reach their standards, whereas a small
Mm.
business can release prototypes along the way and have community feedback about what they want, but they can still be selling and initiating that product in a much faster fashion in the form of
Exactly.
weeks to a couple of months.
Exactly. And that's I think that's actually possibly, or I think that's the most like that's what you see often that actually kills large corporations. The lack of innovation, the lack of preparedness for change.
Yeah,
You've seen it with like also like what like BlackBerry and whatever else, and
yeah,
you see it a lot when companies are focused too much on like how things used to be. They
yeah.
die.
And it takes so long for. It also takes a long time to convince people that are invested in these large, openly traded companies. It takes a lot of money and time to convince them that what you're doing is the right thing.
Yeah.
And so
Oh
you're
yeah.
not going to try and flake out and back out on that
No.
because that's going to lose a
And
lot of trust and lose even more money. Small
exactly. It's
business
also
doesn't
like
have that risk.
exactly, and it's a struggle also for like the small business because you gotta reach that perfect stage of like becoming big enough that your audience turns to you instead of to if some well-known brand makes an alternative version, they're gonna prefer that, right?
Yep.
So you need to hit like some sort of sweet spot, and it's a I mean there's a reason why those types of companies that does that successfully is a unicorns, right? It doesn't happen that often. But when it
It
does,
it
it
doesn't.
really
What's the what's that big old company that's a small indie company that we all worship? Valve, I
oh
believe.
I don't know.
That I think they've kind of hit the sweet spot of being able to make fast decisions while they've kind of got a monopoly on the gaming.
Except for when it comes to updating currencies, right?
Oh, yes, that mate. They are very keen to update the Australian dollar. Tell you what.
I bet they are.
Key prices have gone from 285 to 345 in like the last year. Oh, it's
Oh yeah,
horrible.
yeah.
Um, but on that's going to be part of our next discussion. So how
Yeah.
about we'll just give a recap. So just a recap of this portion of the episode. So Nombers, self-employed gentleman, has a couple of businesses where he invests in CS and then has some other data infrastructure, which is his main form of income, main business that he's been growing and building since about 2017. And the lesson to take away for all you younger people is to just get out and do it. Just give it a try. Even if you fail, your risk is minimal when you're young. You can start businesses and fail until you're 50. It doesn't matter. You
Yeah.
can do
Exactly.
it for ages, until like fishing, you'll find one that hits. It takes a mindset to be okay with failure. It takes a mindset to be okay that you're not going to be the biggest fish in the pond. You're going to just keep working at it. It's not something
Yeah.
that's for everyone. Not everyone is going to be able to do that, commit that time and effort that is required of self employment. But it's something that everyone can try and see if it's right for them.
Exactly. Yeah. And it also as also just as a note, it should not be something that everyone should think that they should do. Like it's a cool job, but it's not anything more. I think sometimes it's a bit glorified. Really, if I'm honest, and it like if you have the passion for it, do it. But like being something else is equally as awesome. And I
Yeah.
think that's really important that people remember that. Like if do whatever makes you happy, and that's it.
Yep. Something I brought up on a previous episode was having a well-paying job is underrated.
Mm.
Absolutely
Yeah,
underrated. Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
but I think that can wrap up our discussion here for this part of the Positive EV podcast. Join us again very shortly, and we're going to be having a discussion of the CS economy, and then we'll get into something about the Turkish Lira and what that's brought us. Thank you guys. I will be back shortly. Thanks, guys.